The front office is working overtime right now to shake up the 90-man roster before the regular season kicks off. We just got hit with a frustrating injury update that forced the medical staff to place a notable offensive weapon on injured reserve today. To counter that brutal loss, management immediately signed 3 new guys off the street while waiving 2 undrafted rookies to clear space. Meanwhile, a relatively unknown second-year receiver is absolutely cooking our starting cornerbacks and making a serious case to steal a roster spot. This underdog John is getting absolutely crazy. The front office was clearly busy before the team even stepped onto the field for Monday's practice session, shaking up the roster with a series of quick moves. Management officially signed Taron Jackson, David Blay, and Jay Quindon Jackson after they spent Sunday in town for visits. To make space for these 3 on the 90-man roster, the Eagles waived 2 undrafted rookies, tight end Daquan Wright and guard Jaden Roberts. Additionally, the team placed running back Elijah Mitchell on injured reserve following his setback during Saturday's workout. And here's why that's a big deal. These transactions show just how ruthless the competition for a spot remains as the heat rises at the NovaCare complex. While Taron Jackson brings familiar depth to the edge, the addition of David Blay and Jay Quindon Jackson suggests the scouts are still hunting for value in the reserves. Seeing 2 rookies like Wright and Roberts cut loose so quickly is a harsh reminder of how fleeting these opportunities can be for young players trying to prove their worth to Nick Sirianni. We have grown accustomed to these roster churns, but placing a veteran like Elijah Mitchell on injured reserve creates a sudden void in the running back room. It makes you wonder how the depth chart looks behind our primary starters now that the rotation has been compromised by these latest medical realities. Does this forced shuffle change the way we approach the upcoming exhibition games? Or is this just another routine day of personnel shuffling in a long, grueling summer? Stick around because we need to examine which of these new faces actually has a legitimate path to the final roster before the season starts. The decision to shuffle the roster stems from a challenging Saturday practice that forced the organization to adjust its depth chart in real time. We watched as multiple players left the field with physical setbacks, triggering a domino effect that left the front office scrambling to fill gaps before the heat of Monday morning hit the NovaCare complex. While losing a running back like Elijah Mitchell to injured reserve is a tough break, the move creates immediate, albeit difficult, opportunities for newcomers like Jaquindon Jackson to prove their worth under fire. Here's where it gets interesting, as the front office appears to be prioritizing immediate availability over developmental projects that lack current momentum. By waiving undrafted rookies such as Daquan Wright and Jaden Roberts, the staff is signaling that patience is in short supply during this intense evaluation period. We have seen these calculated gambles yield high dividends before, but they carry a real risk of parting ways with young talent before their ceiling is fully realized. Management clearly feels that bringing in experienced depth pieces like Taron Jackson and David Blay provides a more stable floor for the team as they navigate a punishing summer schedule. These transactions are never simple, yet they highlight the stark reality of life in the NFL, where yesterday's practice injury can alter a player's entire career path. The coaches are searching for specific traits to shore up the rotation, and they are not hesitating to sacrifice recent additions to clear the path for these latest acquisitions. Now, we must wait and see if these specific roster adjustments provide the necessary stability for the long haul ahead. Moving beyond the news itself, we need to consider what this roster movement signifies for the immediate direction of this club. And honestly, bringing in 3 new faces while parting ways with 2 rookies underscores how specific our front office is becoming about the standard of play they demand in the heat of August. By moving Elijah Mitchell to the injury list and clearing out Wright and Roberts, we are seeing a shift in focus that prioritizes proven versatility over pure potential. The coaching staff is making it plain that every single snap counts, and they refuse to carry players who cannot help them win right now. This adjustment directly impacts the rotation, forcing the coaching staff to rely on the incoming group of Taron Jackson, David Blay, and Jaquindon Jackson much sooner than they might have originally planned. As we look ahead toward the upcoming exhibition schedule, these guys are now forced to find their footing in a hurry. Getting these new additions up to speed is essential to maintaining our defensive and backfield integrity, especially as we aim to stay ahead of our division rivals who are also sharpening their rosters for the autumn battles. We want to see how these replacements handle the pressure when the games actually start counting toward our playoff standing. If these guys can assimilate quickly, the team remains in a strong position to withstand the grind of a full season. But any further roster attrition could threaten to stall our progress before the regular season even officially arrives. It is a high-stakes balancing act that defines every championship pursuit in our league. Getting fresh bodies like Taron Jackson, David Blay, and Jaquindon Jackson onto the roster allows this coaching staff to immediately replace the production lost from the recent wave of injuries. There is legitimate upside in bringing in hungry veterans and prospects who know they are fighting for their professional lives, as they often provide a spark during the dog days of training camp when fatigue begins to set in for the starters. However, the obvious downside remains the disruption to team chemistry, as cutting loose rookies like Daquan Wright and Jaden Roberts means throwing away potential developmental growth for guys who were just getting their first taste of the NFL pace. Some scouts across the league argue that midsummer turnover like this is a sign of desperation rather than depth building, particularly when you consider the reliance on players who have not been in the system all year. My take here is that management is simply trying to keep their practice quality high while waiting for guys like Dameon Pierce to return from injury. But I worry we are losing young talent too early. And I'll be straight with you, I am not convinced that these three newcomers are long-term solutions for a championship squad. While we need to fill the void left by Elijah Mitchell on injured reserve, banking on late additions to learn the playbook before the regular season begins is a gamble. We have to ask if these moves are truly upgrades or just placeholders meant to fill out the depth chart until someone better becomes available on the waiver wire. Keeping a roster afloat while managing the heat requires tough choices, even if those choices mean letting go of potential. When you balance the immediate roster churn with the long-term health of this organization, the reality is that the front office is aggressively tightening the ship to ensure every single practice rep maintains a championship standard. The bottom line here is that by swapping out younger, unproven pieces like Daquan Wright and Jaden Roberts for hungry veterans, the Eagles are signaling a win-now mentality that refuses to compromise on depth during this critical phase of the season. You should feel a sense of confidence knowing that Nick Sirianni and his staff are proactively managing the roster to withstand the inevitable attrition of a long campaign, even if it means losing guys we were just beginning to track. Placing Elijah Mitchell on injured reserve is a tough pill to swallow, yet it provides a clear path for new additions like Jaquindon Jackson to prove they can contribute when the lights turn on for real. This approach tells us that the franchise prioritizes immediate, reliable production over waiting for long-term development from rookies, ensuring the team stays competitive every time they line up. Moving forward, the goal is simple. Create enough depth to survive the summer heat and remain standing when the regular season grind finally arrives. With Taron Jackson, David Blay, and Jaquindon Jackson now officially in the mix, do you believe this trio of newcomers has what it takes to stick on the final 53-man roster? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Fly Eagles fly. I'll see you in the next one.